Communication Development Disorders class. This is lecture number 7. We are talking about the primary years, and the primary years really are reflective in grades 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. As they get older, they start to become middle school students, even if the 5th grade is housed in the elementary school. But typically 5th grade is not considered primary years. Things that you need: strong internet connection, because you're going to hop back and forth. How many times do you hop back and forth? Just one, I believe. Maybe not. We'll see. Only time will tell. So go ahead and put in your table of contents that this is lecture number 7 about language in the primary years. Flip to your next clean page in your notebook. Make sure there is a page number. Make sure you have titled these notes, and get ready to roll. So we are again in primary years, and we're going to talk about primary years excuse me like we have through our 5 levels, just like through all of our other ages. Some things you need to know about the primary years. Hopefully I will not sneeze through this whole thing. In the primary years, children tend to spend more time in non-home settings with non-relatives. So if you want to think about that, they spend, let's say, 6 hours at school. They probably spend an hour on the bus. They could go to piano lessons, soccer lessons, after school care, any of those things. So they're spending by far the majority of their time out of the home and away from non-relatives, which can be positive and negative. But for language, it's really going to broaden the things that they hear. School settings increasingly involve formal instruction and academic English. In preschool, it had much more of a free play with emphasis on gross motor and outdoor play. Kindergarten had more time designated for group time and seat work. Primary years, even more so, that those kids are sitting in their seats and they are really receiving formal instruction. They will begin to participate in more group settings, but a lot of times that is outside of the classroom in many ways. Children begin to read independently and thus experience new genres and written language structures that maybe their parents did not introduce to them. Let's see. That's good for that. So again, we're starting in phonological knowledge. By age 8, most children have complete phoneme production, which means they can make all of the sounds. It's important for teachers to be aware of phoneme production and in the target age, and hold off on referring children to speech therapy. Some kids are not going to be able to, in 1st grade, to maybe really nail those R's or the S's. And they need to not get too excited, you do, as a teacher, not, sending them to speech too early, because a lot of it just naturally progresses. If you ever have a question, please ask your speech therapist, but they're probably going to say just for them to hold off. We are going to look here. Let's see. There are some tongue twisters on your screen. Drew drives dreary dinosaurs. Bob bounces basketballs. Kiwi keeps kids cool. All kinds of them. Pam paints pants. Benny bakes buttery biscuits. I want you to take a second and read some of those to yourself out loud. Even if you're in the library. Sound crazy. Read them out loud. You will see that it's really working your phoneme production on your ability to be able to read some of those sounds. What I want you to do, because our kids are learning new vocabulary every day, and they are learning some of those some of those different language techniques, I want you to pause this real quick. I want you to take one of these tongue twisters and I want you to illustrate it, because a lot of our kids would not understand this until they would illustrate it. It would just be words. Like, Wilma washes widgets. What does that mean? Show it to me. Flora fears frog legs. Gabe gets good gummy bears. Roger races rhinos. Draw me a picture of one of those and then come back to me. So those were phonological knowledge in oral language. So now we're going to spend a good couple slides on phonological knowledge in these primary years in written language. So knowledge of onset and rhyme patterns begin to really take off at this time. They're going to understand what things rhyme, the beginning sounds of these words, they've got them mastered. That's going to help with rhyming. Children use this knowledge of familiar patterns to decode new words. They might know that the beginning of a certain word that they're trying to sound out appears to be the same beginning letter combination as the word that they already know they're trying to sound out, and so they're going to match those. Children uses this strategy of recognizing familiar patterns regardless of their reading level. They're always going to try to group words together and figure it out that way. The downfall is that the English language is quite tricky, and so due to alternative spellings for the same sound, sometimes that can be tricky. I want you to write in your notes the word go, show, and though. So they all rhyme, right? They all have that O sound, but in go, it's just with an O. In show, that's O-W. And in though, it's O-U-G-H. Hopefully you spelled those three words correctly. But those different letter combinations has given us all the same sound. During this grade level, or these ages, you will see a lot of word sorts, and a lot of language arts curricula that is really focusing on sorting like words together so they can see those patterns and make those connections. Phonemic segmentation scores predicted overall performance in reading and spelling. Do they have the ability to chunk up those words and say them, and also the ability to chunk up those words and to be able to spell those words? For our written language, things that they are really working through, they should have their alphabet knowledge down. You're going to get a first grader that still doesn't know their alphabet. Beginning consonant sound awareness. Can they tell me that a B starts with beginning, a C starts with consonant, and an A starts with awareness? The ability to understand that there's a concept of a word in a text, that on that page there is a bunch of words spaced apart. Inside that word there's a bunch of sounds, and those sounds are made up of letters. Spelling and beginning and ending consonants. Can they say the beginning sounds? Can they say the ending sounds? And then also from that, can they represent those through a combination of letters? Phoneme segmentation. Do they understand that phonemes sometimes, in the word phoneme, that's not always an F, that can be a PH. Word recognition, they're going to be able to have sight words, and then contextual reading ability. Are they going to be able to read different words in different contexts and able to use those skills in a variety of settings? I would like for you to watch the video, Helping Struggling Readers, in this module for primary years in Canvas, and I want you to tell me, again, plus, minus, question mark, something that you see that is a definite benefit, a strong point that the teacher is doing, something that you didn't like. Again, it's okay to critique. And then again, a question, something that you would like to discuss in class. So go ahead and pause this and then come back to me. One more for phonological knowledge in our primary years. Again, children's experiences contribute to their oral and written vocabularies. You will hear me say this all week long by taking them places, reading them different books, opening up the world to them. You're also opening up language. This provides opportunities for children to apply what they learn about word spelling patterns to their reading and writing activities. Again, you will have some inventive spelling, and that is okay. But again, experiences, be it original experience, vicarious experiences, those are going to help children build their vocabulary words. Okay, so I want you to look at some of these pictures, and I want you to, we're going to call them picture number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to show you 5 different pictures. And I want you to write down all the vocabulary words that you see for each one of these pictures. So this one, what vocabulary words can you see? What's represented here? What is it? Because this is a picture of a long arm quilter. Some of you might have no idea what this is. I covet this machine. I would love to have this machine. I completely understand what this is. And so I could give a lot of different vocabulary words attached to this because I've had an experience with one of these machines. So that's picture number 1. Look at picture number 2. Give me some vocabulary words for this. The only vocabulary word I can give you is mouth guard. I don't know what the stick is called. I don't know what the ball is called. And I don't know what that little masky thing. You know, I don't know any of that because I've actually never even seen a lacrosse game. Okay, and so some of you will have, because you've experienced this, you'll have language surrounding this picture. Picture number 3. What do you see? I know it's a boxing ring. I know it's called a boxing ring, although it's interesting because I think it's in the shape of a box, and it's not a ring. But you know, what words do you see? What do you know? I don't know what their little gloves are called. Are they mitts? Are they, I don't know what they're called because I've never had any experiences with this. What is this? This is kind of a grainy picture. What words can you attach to it? Picture number 4. I know it's a subway terminal. What other things can you attach to it? I can hear the sounds. I know that the lights are going to flash when the subway is about to come in. You probably can tell me different words that a subway is addressed as in different cities. Okay, and our last one. This is a factory. Picture number 5. If I brought this into that factory, I bet the people that work in this factory could name tons of vocabulary words because they have had a direct experience with this. Me, not so much. I see cars. I see a broom, like that guy pushing the cleaning stuff. I could relate to that. I could do that job. But all the other things, I have no idea what they're called. This is all to show that different experiences contribute to even adults' oral and written vocabularies. Okay, let's move to semantic knowledge. Semantic knowledge in primary years. This conceptual development and vocabulary grows significantly and are important basis for reading comprehension. Vocabulary, the knowledge of it, is really important for them to understand what they're reading. And that makes sense. In lecture number 6, I believe, we talked about a marsh. If you are reading the words in a chapter book and it says marsh and you've never seen one, that's going to be really hard to figure out what it is. At this age, they have vocabulary of roughly around 9,000 root words by the end of the primary years. And those root words, for instance, I know what beauty means. Beautiful, beautifully. So those 9,000 words just count as those root words, and then you can add suffixes and prefixes and all of those things. Students who begin the primary years with larger vocabulary will continue to experience greater vocabulary growth than other children. If you could, I want you to draw a triangle on your paper. Okay, and the triangle, I would like for the fat end to be pointing towards the right and the skinny end pointing towards the left. And you can see if they come into first grade and it's at the tip of that small end and you write a 2, 3, 4, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes down the grades. Now, I want you to draw another little triangle on your paper and make this triangle a lot smaller. Again, at the tip, write 1 all the way to the left. All the way to the right, write a 4, and you can fill in 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, those kids are also growing, but they are going to be growing by less. The larger vocabulary we can get our kiddos to have in the very beginning, the quicker that they are going to read and bloom. Again, exposure to various media, experiences, and literacy, this helps this vocabulary really blossom. It says we're going to read an article, and we're going to do that in class. You're not going to do it today. So, semantic knowledge. Figurative language is really popular. We are teaching our kids to understand figurative language. We are teaching them how to write appropriate figurative language, how to use similes and metaphors. Similes are more explicit in their comparisons than metaphors, so they're easier to understand. In creating a metaphor, a child must be able to see the ways to objects or settings are similar on a more abstract or symbolic level. I remember teaching my 10-year-old, and these were special needs kids, but they had to use some form of figurative language in their writing for the state mandated test. And we were working on similes and metaphors. And some of my kids were trying to describe something as very, very big, and they would say, as big as an ant. Well, that's not big, baby. You know, like that they were not understanding. It does take a whole different level of processing to be able to use a simile and a metaphor effectively. What can help that? Of course, showing them examples of it. Amelia Bedelia is a wonderful resource for figurative language, for humor, for words that have double meaning, for puns and riddles. Being able to illustrate a pun or riddle is going to show that they truly understand it. So I would like for you to stop really quick, go back to our Canvas page, our Moodle page, our Canvas page, and our module, and listen to the reading of Amelia Bedelia. As you're reading this, think, how is this good for primary students? And then also, what activity, what could you do to build into this book in your classroom? So pause me and then come back. Okay, hopefully our reading of Amelia Bedelia was a nice little break for you. I don't know. I've always enjoyed Amelia Bedelia. I think she's funny. Something else to talk about semantic knowledge is the idea of specialized vocabulary. We kind of touched base on that when we were looking at the long arm quilter and the lacrosse stick, the boxing ring. That specialized vocabulary is specifically based on hobbies and special interests. So kids are going to be able to start having a vocabulary that you might not understand if you are not specialized in certain things. Like there's a baseball vocabulary. I remember asking my kids, we were reading a book about baseball one time, and I didn't know how to read like .12 or something because it's not written, you know, in a mathematical way. So they're going to have specialized vocabulary. That goes with fishing or wrestling or soccer or music or art. They're going to really begin to own that specialized vocabulary. Looking at syntactic knowledge, it's increasing complexity. They have a clear understanding of how pronouns are used. Students who have experienced or been exposed to more complex language through a variety of genres and settings will develop more elaborate syntactic knowledge. Again, we are trying to expose kids to as much language as possible. Dictating students stories can help aid in freedom of grammatical and text features. So if you're having a kid that hates to write, we need to figure out, do they hate writing because of the actual process of writing, or do they hate writing because it's hard for them to come up with something? Most kids can tell a pretty good story, and so sometimes getting them to see that they like to write and they like to create is you actually writing it for them, and sometimes that can get them moving in the right direction. Classrooms where most of the instruction occurs in teacher-directed large groups, or where children work independently, offer little opportunity for children to develop this linguistic competencies for complex literacy. It is important to get them talking to each other, to get them discussing things. We do not like quiet classrooms. Morphemic knowledge. As these primary kiddos, as their morphemic knowledge increases, children are able to communicate with more elaboration and preciseness. They're going to be able to use adjectives. The way students will talk to each other and play or on the baseball field, they know they need to use academic language in the classroom, or academic English. Oral language may not show evidence of written language. They might speak one way and write the other, but we do want to make sure that they can kind of, if you remember again, code switch. They can switch between how they speak on the field to their friends and how they speak in the classroom. And finally, pragmatic knowledge in our primary years. These kiddos have greater opportunities for experience and activities through sports, extracurricular activities, vacations, museums, sporting events, religious-based events. They're able to go more places. They can make specific requests for clarification and increasingly more competent in conversation. If they have a need, they will tell you. And resolving conflict. Due to their increased thinking skills, children are now also able to generate different ways to solve problems. They can talk it through. They're just not going to throw themselves on the floor and have a fit like maybe some of our toddler friends will. Maintaining a conversational topic, produce polite direct and indirect requests, and create more complete descriptions and comparisons are all attributes of our primary year kiddos, and that is specifically for this pragmatic knowledge. Again, the academic English, awareness of academic English, and able to begin to use in the classroom setting. And you will probably see, I would say, maybe in first grade, second grade, they really start to pull away from each other on the kids that know how to do school. And that's a funny thing, but some kids can be extremely intelligent but don't understand the concept of how to do school, how to get through school, how to speak school, if you will. Is our primary year's base lecture. We have a bunch of fun activities planned for y'all. When you come into the classroom, when you are going to be brought back to your early primary year's days, we're going to practice some of these things. Look forward to seeing y'all, and I will see you guys tomorrow.